Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. So, welcome to another episode of the WA Property Q&A podcast. And with me today is none other than Karlie Wolfe. Karlie is a licensed valuer in the state of Western Australia. Karlie is the residential development senior director of residential development and advisory at Opteon. Hope I got that right, Karlie.
Pretty close, yes.
Pretty close.
Thanks, Peter.
Tell me, what does a senior director do, and what do you do day to day? Tell me about that.
Yeah, look, apart from obviously doing the actual valuation work and assessing projects on a day-to-day basis, my role is very much to train and mentor some of the junior valuers coming through in this specialisation, liaise with all of the clients, make sure our reports are compliant, and just basically be across I'm basically the go-to person for anyone that needs res dev valuations in our WA office.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What got you into res dev valuations?
Yeah, interesting. I actually worked out pretty early in my career that was an area of vals that I really enjoyed doing. So, 20 years ago when I was doing my traineeship, I worked on a couple of small-scale developments, and I really enjoyed running the feasibility analysis and working out what projects made money and what didn't. And kind of worked for a couple of developers along the way, but really ended up landing back in vals and specialising in this space. And Opteon's been extremely supportive of me continuing that specialisation. It's just an area I really enjoy, crunching the numbers on and looking at the product that's coming to market.
And the sort of developments that you're analysing, consulting on, valuing, what gives a scope of those?
So pretty much anything from sort of a triplex villa sort of development we would work on right up to your multi-level mixed-use CBD sort of project. So we do anything from built form to land subdivision. My particular specialisation is built form. I really enjoy doing sort of the apartment projects and the townhouses and villas, but the team itself works across both your land subby space and your built form space.
So where do you get involved? At what point do you get involved with, let's say somebody wants to do a triplex or quad? Where do you get involved at what point?
If we're just doing the smaller scale stuff, usually our first engagement is when the developer is going for finance. So we would get involved in either the acquisition of the site and financing the site, or we would then go on and look at the project and run the numbers for the bank and get involved at the financing stage. For the bigger stuff, the relationship is just as strong with the developers as it is the financiers, and they tend to take us along on the journey right from the beginning, which is really great to be involved in. So we'll be involved in, the site acquisition stage, not just looking for sites and giving them advice on that, but also assessing the sites for finance and then working with them to bring the best product to market and running the feasibility for the bank.
Okay, so at junior level, triplex level, you're working on behalf of the banks to do the val there.
Yes.
But at a more senior level, you're doing the valuation on behalf of the developer.
Yes.
As part of their feasibility.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's concentrate our efforts today around that sort of junior market, like triplex, quad, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And let's say that you were consulting for a developer, like somebody wanted to do the senior thing at a junior level.
Sure.
What are the things that you would be telling the developer to look for? What are the key numbers that we need to be looking for?
Sure. There's a few bits and pieces that are probably pretty key when looking at sites to start with. Obviously, location is number one. Anything that's sort of fronting a main road or, say, really removed from amenity, that will be less sought after. Sites that, for just a small scale stuff, sites that have a corner position create more flexibility in the site. You can create more street fronting lots. So that is definitely preferred, and the market tends to pay more for them because you get a better product at the end usually. And obviously servicing is a big one. So you need to be in areas where you've got sewer, power, water, so you're not spending money in having to bring those services to the site, because then that obviously is an added cost for you through the process. So that would be my key things to look for.
Okay. Do you look at things like shape of the land?
Absolutely. Shape, topography. So obviously a perfectly shaped corner flat site in a sought after, already established location, that's obviously your prime property that you would look for. But yeah, obviously the more awkward the site is, triangular shaped, that will limit what you can and can't do with the site under the zoning.
Triangles make development and building using land really difficult, doesn't it?
It does. And there are some architects out there that think outside the box and have brought some really cool, unique designed project to market. But obviously with that comes additional costs and expense. So in a market where construction costs are pretty tough, actually making those projects work and feasible is a lot more challenging.
So when you talk about flat, pretty important piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, it is. So when I say flat, I mean level with the road grade, effectively. So the whole site level with the road grade. Once you start talking about having to bring in fill and leveling the site yourself, retaining walls, things like that, they're all just an added cost to be able to bring the right product to the market at the end.
I was telling you last night, I had a quote to do 21 metres of 1.2 metre high retaining.
Yeah.
$63,000.
Yeah. Site works can make or break a deal, basically. It's pretty crucial.
It's hideous.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so easy to when a developer's looking at a block of land, you think, oh, it's level, until you bring the surveyor in.
Yes.
And then it's a long way off level.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously once it is obvious that it's not level to, your stock standard person, the less level it is, the more expensive it is to develop. Okay,
so those shape, size, location, topography, all that sort of stuff, that goes into the purchase price equation for the purchase price.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other part of how much you're willing to pay is how much you're willing to, or how much you think you're going to get for your end product.
Correct. So yeah, like on top of that, obviously market evidence is key. But at the end of the day, a developer's not going to do a project unless, there's some fat in it at the end of it and they're making a profit. So another methodology that not only the market uses but valuers use is this hypothetical development calculations, or a feasibility, where you effectively look at what you can sell the end units for, working back with all of your costs. So you need to take into account your GST you've got to pay, any site works, your building construction costs, your holding costs, your interest on capital, and then obviously also factor in a profit and risk, which is what you're hoping to take home at the end. Stamp duty, and that'll effectively give you a residual land value that the project can potentially afford to pay for the land, if that's the profit that you're seeking out of that project. So it's not an exact science, and at the moment in that small scale, can be a little bit complicated. And in that small scale space at the moment, we're noticing that probably majority of the developers are developer builders. So they it's not so much your mum and dads are playing in this space so much at the moment because it is quite challenging to make work. But your builder developers, I guess, they already know the trades. They know what it's going to cost them to build it, and they can play around with their builder's margin. They know they're getting profit at the end of it because they're the developer, so they can potentially build it for slightly cheaper because they don't have to take on a retail building contract.
Years ago, and around here was where I had my real estate agency, and it was common for the mum and pop developers to be participating in this market.
Yeah,
and you're saying they're not so active now.
It's a more challenging market than, say, what it was 10 years ago when absolutely that mum and dad developer was really active in that space. So back 10 years ago, there were many builders to play with. Construction costs weren't climbing the way that they're climbing now. And there was some certainty around what you could sell the end units for. So probably your biggest challenge was actually getting the end units sold, so getting people on paper. Whereas fast forward to today, the biggest challenges are what it's actually going to cost you to put it there. So you might work your numbers today on what you think it's going to cost you, and then you go and price it with a builder and we're 20-30% higher. So it's a very hard space for a mum and dad to play in, where you have to pay effectively retail cost for the whole development cycle.
Yeah. So let's talk about estimating the price of your end sales.
Yes.
How do you go about that? So you use your sales evidence that's available today.
Correct.
But you know that the product isn't going to come online until, 18 months, 2 years down the track probably?
Yep.
How are you assessing that?
Yeah, look, valuers, by definition, when you look at what's called an as-if complete market assessment, we are making the assumption that the units are built today in today's market.
Okay.
So basically, if it doesn't work in today's market, you're not going to take the punt that it might work in. Well, some might, but it'd be a lot more risky to take the punt that it might work in 18 months' time.
Okay. Yes. So if it doesn't work on today's numbers, you don't go ahead.
Chances are the developer won't go ahead. Unless, say, they've owned the site for 10 years and they've got a whole lot of equity in the site and the numbers work for them, yes. But you as a potential developer who's looking for a site and looking to buy the site in today's market, if the numbers don't work today, probably not buying it.
Okay. Okay. So you don't factor in any potential increases in prices or anything like that. You just take it as if it was today.
I would love to have a crystal ball, Peter. I would love to be able to say, in 18 months' time, this is where the market is going to be. But as you and I know, being through a few property cycles, a lot can happen in 18 months. So hence why taking on a development is risk. The market might be fabulous today, but in 18 months' time, there might have been another GFC or another, something might have happened and the market is no longer what it was 18 months ago.
I'm going to press you on this, Karlie, and I'll tell you, but there'll always be an escape route.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that at barbecues you get asked, people say, what do you do? And you say, I'm a property valuer.
Yes.
And after, how much is my home worth?
Yep.
I'm sure they ask you where's the market going?
Sure.
What's your answer there?
My answer is it always goes back to economic fundamentals effectively. So looking at the main drivers for property and what's going on. So at the moment, a big driver is obviously this lack of stock that we've got. So I think I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I think we're sitting just under 3,000 properties available on the market currently, which is lower than anything we ever saw GFC.
It's less than 2.
Yeah, well, there you go.
It's low.
There you go. So, I mean, this time of year is probably not the best indication, but either way, it's at record lows.
Yep.
Then we've got positive population growth.
Yep.
So it's simple supply-demand factors effectively. So from my perspective right now, whilst we've still got increases in demand and a serious challenge in the supply space, I can't see anything changing. That's not to say that something may happen. Say, for example, they close the borders and all of a sudden we don't have this population influx. But just looking at the fundamentals of today and the main drivers for property, I can't see anything changing in the short to medium term.
So you expect continued capital growth?
At this stage, yes. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. How long that can go for, I don't know, Peter, because as we have sort of discussed before, in this Perth market, affordability surely has to come into play at some point. So how much further it can climb, I'm not sure.
Talk to me about affordability. What are you thinking there? How's that going to impact?
I guess it comes down to, the serviceability of a mortgage and what people can, borrow from the banks. So from an affordability factor, obviously we've had some significant growth in Perth over the last couple of years. And we do have a lot of money floating around the Perth market. I think the FIFO industry has obviously really helped with wages, but, there's a lot of industries where we haven't seen the wage growth that we need to, be able to support the current prices that are in the market. But my understanding is that serviceability, we're sitting currently quite a bit less than from a ratio perspective of wages to mortgage. We're sitting quite a bit less in WA here to what they do over east. So I do believe that there could be some room to move from the banks and in serviceability and what they will lend us. But there will absolutely be a ceiling to that too. And at some point the market has to tap out. So, it's an interesting place in the market to watch to see how far it can go.
Yeah, you hear about these, this cost of living crisis, and it's like all over the news. And if you listen to the news, well, you'd buy into it. And then you go to the Crown on a Friday, Saturday night, and there's people just everywhere having a fat time. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it just doesn't scream cost of living crisis to me.
Absolutely. I think we're creating this haves and have-nots in Perth at the moment.
Yeah, right, okay.
I think there's the market that's, probably across a lot of industries that traditionally wouldn't have seen significant wage growth or have the level of disposable income that they've got today. But I think Perth's really unique where we have got obviously this resources industry that there's a lot of money to be made up there. And then we've obviously got a different part of the market too that would absolutely be feeling the cost of living crisis at the moment. And it's that part of the market that's it is a little bit scary watching the numbers continue to climb. And if you're not already in the market, I'm not sure how you get in.
That's 100% true. It's if you it's better off. You're better off paying $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 too much for a property. Well, too much. For a property and getting yourself into the market and then letting the capital growth
thing.
Than trying to pay exactly the right amount, but then end up chasing the market up and paying $100,000 more.
Absolutely. We've got people in the office who have actually been looking for a family home for a really long time, and valuers being valuers, there's no emotion in it. And it's a really, really tough market to buy in because exactly what you're saying is happening. People are paying overs because they know the market's going to catch up probably pretty sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So
basically you pay $30,000 overs. By the time settlement rolls around, you're probably about break even.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and the tough part for valuers is at that price point, you're pretty much creating the next level in the market every time a property transacts. So that there isn't the evidence around, but at the same time, it's been tested on the market, and chances are there's 5 or 6 offers sitting behind it at a similar number that would grab it in a heartbeat. So the market's absolutely willing to pay for it, but proving that number is really challenging. So it's a great market to be a part of, but it definitely has its challenges.
Where does the supply come from?
It really can only come from new supply, really. And as you know, that there is a time lag there, so that this supply issue is not going to be solved anytime soon. And like we were, talking yesterday, the part of the market that would probably fix this the quickest is the part of the market that isn't feasible. So it's this place, well, the part of the market that I call this dead space, which is effectively the biggest scale apartment that doesn't have a water view or, ocean or river view or a spanking city view. It's this affordable, well-designed apartments in areas people want to live in, but the construction costs are just too high to make it work. So that's the part of the market that'll bring scale, but no one's building it.
So there's a bunch of units around Coburn Central, blocks of units.
Yep.
They're strategically well located in terms of close to a shopping centre, close to transport.
Yep.
Is that the sort of dead space you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I know SKS Group have done a couple of projects through there. They've got one under construction now, and I think they've just proposed another one on one of the last town sites there in Coburn. They've owned those sites for a little while. That's also a Development WA subdivision. So the Development WA are a little bit more commercial in working with the developer to actually get something out of the ground. It's not sort of a true retail private transaction. But yes, that's the part of the market that we need some scale. It's on a train line. It's got amenity. It ticks all the right boxes. But the end unit prices are yet to outweigh the increases in construction to make it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the increase in construction costs. So one of two things has to happen there. Either the price of the end units have to go up or the price of the land has to come down.
Correct. Or construction costs need to get a little bit more competitive.
And they were not going to do that.
That ain't happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the answer is to that, Pete, but that is absolutely the challenge in that market.
Yeah.
And a lot of those sites are sitting on the market at the moment because exactly like you said, the only other driver is what you can afford to pay for the land. And it's too risky a market for developers to want to play in at the moment. So selling those more affordable infill sites, we just haven't seen a lot of growth in that space because it's been so challenging to actually make the projects feasible.
Is there much activity in overseas investors sort of sucking up that, those off the plan sales?
Yeah, absolutely. More so in the more luxury space, but not only overseas, but particularly a couple of years ago, it has slowed down a little bit, but over East investors were really active in our market. So, it has been a little bit challenging in Melbourne and Sydney. Perth obviously had a, pretty impressive vacancy rate in the rental market and they could see the capital growth going. So Perth became a very attractive market for all investors to play in. They're absolutely still active in our market. They're just over East has probably softened a little bit.
So the luxury end of the market. So I'm thinking, there's a big development just starting down in Mill Point Road, South Perth. That'll have sexy views out of the city. That's the sort of stuff that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's stuff down right on the water in Cottesloe. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in Scarborough right on the water. South Perth's a perfect example. There's hardly anything has happened along the South Perth Esplanade for probably 10, 15 years. And I think there's at least two pretty impressive full floor apartments, sort of, 6-story development that are happening down there. And they're I'm not 100% sure where this money's coming from, but there's absolutely demand in our market for that sort of product at the moment.
Back in the day, when Elizabeth Quay was a junior, and they built that tower there that I think the Hilton is now in. Units were selling in there at a scandalous $10,000 a square metre, and there was people saying, how is it that even possible? And now $10,000 a square metre, from what I understand, is cheap.
Yeah, that's, I think even just a stock standard apartment not on the water, you're sort of pushing the $9,000 to $9,500 a metre. So the idea of paying $10,000 a metre on the water, it'd be an absolute bargain today.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit of work recently along the coast, like West Coast Highway, and basically you can't buy a brand new 1-bedroom for under $900K.
1 bedroom?
Yeah, a 1-bedroom apartment.
900,000.
Yeah, basically $1 million will buy you one.
So what 1 bedroom would be 45 square metres?
Oh, they're definitely designed for your owner occupiers. It's more of a luxury boutique development, but so you're probably looking at about 65 square metres, single car bay.
65 square metres.
Yeah.
For $1 million. So that's about $17,000 a square metre or something like that. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So what's the game? What's the tiebreaker here to get some supply into the market? It just sounds
Probably the only part of the market that will get some runs on the board quite quickly would be your townhouse and villa market. So what we call that grouped dwelling product. It's probably the sweet spot in the market. I guess as we know, Perth loves their house and land set up, and getting their head around apartments and density has been somewhat challenging. But this townhouse market seems to be, I guess, the compromise in that space. And we have seen, I know Stocklands are doing some, the guys at Locust are doing some, like some bigger scale townhouse sort of projects. The hardest part there is actually getting the land in the areas to be able to develop these townhouse projects. But that, you're dealing in your more project builder space. The development life cycle is shorter. And that's probably going to be the quickest way to try and get some kind of supply to the market in the short to medium term.
What's the winning formula for those developments? What do they need to look like to
work?
To get them sold?
As in the site or the end units?
End units.
End units. Look, it's actually pretty easy to sell the end units at the moment. It doesn't have to tick a lot of boxes. But I think gone are the days where it was all about just maxing out your lot yield and just sticking as many units on there as possible, regardless of design. That was sort of happening 10, 15 years ago. I think those days are gone. So, the market probably doesn't realise it until they walk through it. But a well-designed small unit will feel a lot bigger than a poorly designed big unit, if that makes sense. So it is very much about making sure you are bringing the product to market that the market wants, that they're well-designed, and you're not overcapping on the fit out effectively.
Okay.
So location plays a part in everything.
There is a risk there of overcapitalising on finish?
Oh, absolutely. There is.
What would you say to a junior developer to avoid when it comes to finishes?
Just absolutely play in the market and the space that your development is in. For example, it would not make sense to put all the fruit in a unit, like really high ceilings, thick stone bench tops, even as far as ducted reverse cycle air conditioning, gold handles, all that kind of stuff. It would not make sense to design a luxury South Perth apartment in, say, Balcatta. The market will have a ceiling of what they're prepared to pay for. They won't pay extra for it. So you're better off designing a really nice, well-finished product that's probably slightly above project, that the market will pay a premium for, but you're not spending additional costs for not a lot of return.
Yeah, I just had a crack at buying one a townhouse in East Vic Park.
Okay.
And the finish was good, not spectacular, but good. And very, very popular, like very popular.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but even with the townhouse market, that's going to take a long time to...
Yeah, you're probably 18 months away from developing anything if you're starting from scratch today.
Even if you started today, you're still 18 months,
away.
2 years down the track.
Yeah.
So
the biggest challenge is the time lag in this. Well, the builder space, and the time lag. Absolutely. Yeah. This probably should have happened quite a while ago. Everyone sort of getting on board to bring
and buying the land, Karlie, because there's very little land. So to do infill development, you've got to convince people that are land banking right now to bring stuff to the market. To sell their land.
Yeah.
Hard to do that when the prices of the land is going up so fast, and they're going, well, why would I sell? I can hang on for another 2 years and make another $500,000.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no, it is. There's some interesting things going on in that infill space at the moment, actually. So you go back sort of even just pre-COVID, a site that might have been in a fringe CBD location that's been rezoned for mixed use, high density, but might have some old industrial units, construction on it. Go back 5 years ago, no one would have paid a cent for those buildings. It would have absolutely been considered land value, and if anything, they were a detriment because you had to spend money demolishing it. Nowadays, the market is a little bit more sophisticated, and these sort of sites that have a holding income that's offered and functional improvements, the market is now paying a premium for over vacant land because it's giving the developer flexibility that if they decide to not progress, at least they know they're getting some kind of income from it, and they can sit on it and land back and wait and see what the market does. Or either way, they can rent it out for 12 to 18 months, get all their plans away, and at least they've got some kind of return and they're not left with a vacant site just spending holding income. So, it is challenging to get. There's a lot of off-market transactions happening. So developers, I guess, working with these landowners for quite a few months before a transaction happens. But again, it's probably more the real premium sites that developers are falling over themselves to buy because that's the product that's working. And the stuff that's sitting in the middle, if it doesn't have something that you can sort of rent out in the meantime, it's actually very hard to get a sale away.
What does a premium site look like?
Premium site, when I refer to premium sites, this is the thing. These are the sites that are, at the moment, the real luxury, unique areas in Perth. So there's been a lot of activity right on the coast down in Scarborough. There's been a lot of activity in South Perth. There's been a lot of activity in Cottesloe. And these are areas that, development's been pretty slow really over the last sort of 10, 15 years. Now all of a sudden that those development sites make work and they stack, there's a lot of experienced developers that are sort of pushing the button on those sites, and they're prepared to pay over for these sites because the market is moving so quick in that space. And if they don't pay over, they're going to miss out, and God knows when the next available site will be there to buy.
Yeah. So somebody buys a property today. How long before they can they would have sales on their hand? As in, how long will it take end to end?
Yeah. The small scale stuff, probably a matter of maybe 6 months, and that would include obviously designing your product, getting that through council and approved, and actually having something tangible to offer the market and for them to sign on the dotted line for to know what they're buying. Your biggest scale stuff, realistically, it's probably a 2-year process before you can even offer that project to market. So the design process obviously takes a long time. There's a lot of different consultants that need to be involved to get it to a stage where you can submit it to council or submit it to, whichever body you're going through for approval. And then the approval process can take north of 9 months sometimes. It is a very, very lengthy process for your bigger scale developments, but at the same time, you've really got to get it right.
So in terms of risk, at a junior level, what are the main risks that a developer would face? What do you need to manage for?
Probably not understanding all of your costs. So you go back to that barbecue question. If someone does start challenging me on or asking questions on, I've thought about doing a few developments. It seems really easy. And then you start talking things like GST and they're like, what do you mean I have to pay GST? It's like, you have to pay GST. And, so it's probably about understanding all of the costs that go into a development and making sure that they are as accurate as you can make it before you're committing. Yeah.
So when you're talking about costs, you're estimating build costs.
Correct.
How do you estimate build costs when they're going up by 20% a year?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Really, all you can do is engage with the right consultants or at the smaller level, probably a good project builder that can play in that space that will be able to give you some pretty robust costings up front. It's definitely a challenge, Pete. Like the amount of projects we are doing at the moment where all of the approvals are away. The property is as pre-sold as it needs to be to actually get the bank to play ball in funding it. The bank's sitting there going, we are ready to go. Let's get this thing out of the ground. And we are only working with builders' quotes or tender documents to run the feasibilities on these projects. And then when they go to push the button with the builder and actually lock in that contract, The builder's committed to other projects in the meantime, often can't take on that work, and you have to start all over again. So it is the lack of capacity in our building industry at the moment is a huge challenge for developers.
Yeah, right.
And the costs are only going to increase because of it, basically.
Yeah. So we need more bricklayers, tradies, all that.
Yeah.
But we don't have the houses to put them in.
We don't have the houses to put them in. A lot of them end up north because there's more money, so they don't play in our space. And then we've got the other factor that the government has announced some pretty impressive infrastructure projects, which obviously every time that happens and they commit to a build, a lot of the private sector building industry is sucked into one of those government projects. So we've already got a lack of supply of skilled labour in that space. And whilst you've got some really chunky government work floating around, it's pretty hard to convince them to work on the private sector.
Have you ever seen a developer make a really bad mistake, as in, really mucked up?
Probably one of the worst that I saw was pre-GFC when it was all about just fitting as many units on a block as possible. I remember sort of City of Belmont comes to mind, and the Springs in Rivervale. It was all about what I like to call sort of cheap and cheerful investor stock, where exactly those 40, 45 square metre one-bedders were being rolled out everywhere and the units weren't really well designed. And then when the market turned, we had a crazy amount of stock that needed to be absorbed, which just wasn't that functional or livable. So it's, I guess, really understanding your market and making sure that you are bringing a product to the market that the market wants and that has longevity in it is a really smart move for developers. If you're just going to get caught up in the numbers and, maxing out as much as you can, whether the market wants it or not, that's when you can feel a fair bit of pain.
How do people work out what the market wants?
It's all about engaging with the right people. So speak to your local real estate agent or agents that are working in this space and selling this property on the regular. It might cost you a bit of money, but it would be worth probably engaging a valuer early on to get some sort of marketing or pre-sale advice as to what, once you've got some plans together, what the valuer believes you could sell the end units for. It's all about leaning on the right consultants to get the right information.
And what about development land? Is there much happening in that space?
That market is extremely hot. It is. We love our urban sprawl here in Perth and we are running out of land and there's not a lot of large scale serviced zoned ready land throughout the Perth metro area. So there's a lot of land banking going on from the big guys. I guess they're paying some pretty impressive prices for, say, rural zone land today, knowing that they'd rather be involved in the process of having this land rezoned and bringing their next project to market. But the growth in the land lots at the end is that's no different to any other part of the market. That's pretty impressive. The demand is absolutely there and the supply is getting smaller and smaller.
Is there any traditionally, we've gone south and north in terms of our sprawl. Do you think there'll be more activity sort of northeast, or where's the development activity going to be?
I think it'll be anywhere the government's open to rezoning throughout the whole metro area. So yes, obviously the coastline north-south has been a pretty popular place to do a land subdivision, but east is just as active at the moment. So your Haynes, your Hammond Parks, your Piara Waters, Champion Lakes, there's a lot of activity through that pocket of Perth. Baldivis, there's a lot of activity through Perth, and I'm hearing from quite a few land developers that they tend to sort of release 20 to 25 lots at a time, say, and it's not unusual for basically 80% of them to be gone the first weekend they're released. So, that market is extremely, extremely hot, and it's basically throughout the whole, if you've got the land, throughout the whole metro area.
The government recently put an 800-metre circle around 2 train stations in East Vic Park and I think a bunch down along the Freo line.
Correct.
What's been the impact of that, and how do you think that will impact the market?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to unpack from that. I
Mm.
think that there has been these sort of plans where they call it, I think, sort of the walking catchment area from the train line, where they just put a blanket 800 metres from the train line. It is a smart concept because obviously it is about having the amenity if you're going to build density. So being run on top of a train line makes sense. But I think there's a lot more work to be done from a planning perspective and working out exactly what works in these spaces to get the sites right. So as much as it is, I guess, the first step to starting that process, I think we're realistically probably 5 to 10 years away from seeing anything kind of, I guess, develop through that.
So those circles, they weren't, well, they're now rezoned circles. They were just an intention, were they?
That is my understanding, and there is, it makes sense for them to do it, but there are a whole lot of planning documents that have to sit behind it. So they can't just go, anything 800 metres from the train line, yes, as of today, you can develop it to this density. There's a whole lot of, planning documents and structure planning and, community engagement that needs to happen before a developer can actually put a proposal forward to develop in those areas. So it is my understanding that there is a fair bit of work to do in that space before we're actually going to see anything.
Planning is still a big problem for the development community, isn't it?
It is.
It's a major brake on bringing stuff to the market.
They're desperately trying to improve the process. There's been quite a few different bodies created of late to try and, I guess, streamline it and have the right qualified people on the panel making decisions on these projects, which I think is definitely an improvement. But yes, the planning process is still lengthy. It is still long, and there's still a lot of hoops that developers need to jump through to get these things approved. That being said, the government seems to be very pro density and bringing supply to the market. So we are seeing a lot of DAs being approved that are above the planning, density and our codes and guidelines to try, if it's in the right location, the government is thinking pretty open-minded and there is some flexibility in that sort of density and scale space at the moment.
There's a lot of NIMBYism around getting development approved.
Yeah, there is. I think if you speak to any of the guys down in Cottesloe who are building anything, they will tell you all about the NIMBYs. It's a tough one for developers because community engagement, from what I'm hearing, is a pretty key part of the process now, particularly if you're going to bring anything of scale to an area. But exactly like what happened with East Perth Redevelopment Authority and, Subi Centro, that was absolutely on the nose when they proposed that. And basically everyone loved it afterwards, and they in hindsight, they probably should have done more density through there. So it's probably a case of, which I'm sure the community doesn't want to hear, build it and they will come. But yes, there is absolutely pushback from the NIMBYs.
So there's areas that wouldn't be affected by NIMBYs, and I'm talking that little triangle of land between the Graham Farmer Freeway, Goodwood Parade, where Blaster Brewery is, and Great Eastern Highway.
Yep.
And there's a whole, I believe that area is zone 4 high-rise.
Yep.
And yet there's not a lot of high-rise happening in there.
Yep.
What's stopping that from happening? Why?
Pretty much the feasibility of the projects. So there is some issues or some challenges to do with bushfire risk running along the Graham Farmer Freeway. So the last couple of jobs that I did in there is the highest possible bushfire rating along a fair chunk of that land that you basically cannot.
Thought?
I know, it's crazy.
In the middle of the city, and you've got this high
shrubland.
Bell.
Yeah. So there is some challenges throughout that pocket to do with bushfire and actually getting that you know, I guess somewhat overturned to try and get some development out of the ground. But Pete, again, it's just come down to the cost of construction, and it's obviously very high density through there. And it's just been a challenging market to actually make work. It's not. I guess it's just. It's on the border of the Springs in Rivervale, and that, even though that has been successful now, that was a really, really challenging subdivision going back sort of 10 years ago, and there was a lot to absorb in there, and it's probably more the aftermath of what happened with the Springs that people are a little bit hesitant to get involved.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of developments that went up there, and you thought, oh well, that's the start of the redevelopment, and it just stopped.
Yeah.
It just
it's sitting in that dead patch again. To do anything of that scale at the price point you could achieve in Burswood, like right on the train line, you got all the power line issues, Grand Farmer Freeway. It does have, I guess, a few warts on it from a view perspective. You just can't charge for the end units to make it feasible.
Yeah. There's about 3,600 square meters of land where budget is. That's for sale. And, it's a gutsy developer, but like you said, it's those development opportunities where if you bought them, they've got a bit of holding income. It's not great, but at least there's a holding income which allows you to sort of assess your options.
Yeah, correct.
Karlie Wolfe, this has been really good.
Thanks for having me.
No, you're very, very welcome. And tell me, if someone wanted to purchase your services, how would they make contact with you? Where would they go? How do you work?
Look, probably best to either jump on the Opteon website or search me on LinkedIn. My details will be there. I'm more than happy to discuss anything with the developer and help developer or property investor and help guide them through the process.
So we'll chuck a link to your LinkedIn profile
Be fabulous.
onto the show notes.
Sure.
That's great. And link to Opteon.
Yeah.
You guys are really, like, you do everything, don't you? Like, you've got...
We do.
Farmland and agribusiness and...
Yeah, we made a call about 5 years ago throughout more so our commercial team that there was a real need to create specialist valuers in these sort of areas, and it's been a really successful outcome for Opteon. So naturally, I head up the residential development team, but we've got some really impressive guys that play in the childcare centre space, service station space, like you said, the agribusiness space. So the best part about it is you're going to get someone that's working in that product type day in, day out. So know it pretty well. It's been a really good outcome for us.
Karlie Wolfe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. I've really enjoyed it.
And until next time, this has been Peter Fletcher on the WA Property Q&A podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.